At the CNN Center, an 8.3 magnitude earthquake has struck off the Chilean coast, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. The epicenter is about 50 kilometers west of the city of Ayapec. Ayapec is about 3 hours north of the capital, Santiago. The city's mayor says all lights have been knocked out, and right now it's difficult to assess the damage. These are the images from inside the office of our affiliate there, CNN Chile, moments after the quake struck. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center says widespread hazardous tsunami waves are possible along most of the country's coast, and emergency evacuations are now underway. The center says the tsunami threat also extends across the Pacific to islands including Hawaii and Polynesia and the coasts of Peru and Ecuador. But so far, as of now, reports of widespread damage or injuries have not emerged, but it is still early. All of this happened about 2 hours or less than 2 hours ago. Initially, the USGS thought the quake had a power of magnitude 7.9. That was quickly upgraded to 8.3. The epicenter was just off the shore, and again happening at 7:54 p.m. local time.
The United States Geological Survey has just given us an update that we didn't want to hear. This is now an 8.3 magnitude earthquake, and if that is the case, it would rank as one of the strongest ones that I've ever covered. It would rank stronger than Fukushima. It would rank stronger than Northridge, which hit in California. It would rank stronger than any United States earthquake except the one that hit in 1904 that I was discussing with a guest here, Greta, just a couple of days ago. If it's an 8.3 earthquake, as they've now updated, that's a massive earthquake. And
Shep,
yep.
let me make sure that I have this. This is 150 miles off the coast.
Off the coast of
Chile,
Santiago.
Right? So there are no injuries that we know of
That's
in
right.
Chile and on Santiago.
Exactly
At
what I
most,
said.
we have some buildings swaying.
That's right.
And we may have people who have, of course, panicked, understandably, from the swaying. But that's where we stand right now.
Yep,
Is that
those
right?
are the reports we have, but what they're advising us is that we don't have reports out of everywhere yet. And 8.3, Greta, as you know, is a very big. It's a huge earthquake.
The country's Mineral Resources Department says that Fiji's shores will likely see the effects of the quake at around midnight local time, adding that coastal areas in the Pacific Island country can expect tsunami waves of up to 1 metre. Authorities said no immediate action or movement was needed, but one seismologist from the California Institute of Technology, Mark Simons, was more cautious, saying that those nations surrounding the epicenter of the quake needed to remain vigilant, especially if the 8.3 magnitude quake was just in advance of a larger seismic event.
The tsunami from this particular event can take, I don't know, many tens of hours to cross the Pacific. So if you are in New Zealand, Tonga, Fiji, Japan, you'd be on watch for a while. Or Hawaii, we know it's the current prediction is 3 a.m. local time in Hawaii, so about 6 a.m. here for the first possible arrival. It's not saying there's going to be one. But the bigger issue, I suppose, is, one earthquake can be fought. This could be a foreshock. There's always that possibility. 1 in 10 earthquakes are big earthquakes, actually foreshocks of a big earthquake. And there can also be other processes, such as landslides, that may happen in a delayed fashion. So usually the wise thing is to be vigilant for a while.
Hello, welcome to Newsline. I'm Miki Yamamoto in Tokyo with the latest news at this hour. A volcano on Japan's southwestern island of Kyushu has erupted. Mount Aso has been sending plumes of smoke and ash into the air. An NHK camera has captured images of black smoke rising high above the crater. The meteorological agency says the eruption occurred on Monday at around 9:43 a.m. local time. That's about 2 hours and 15 minutes ago. Agency officials observed smoke rising as high as 2,000 meters. They saw large rocks flying near the site of the eruption. Officials have raised the alert level for the area to 3 on a scale of 5. Level 3 means do not approach the volcano. The agency is calling for caution against falling volcanic rocks and pyroclastic flows in areas within about 2 kilometers of the crater. Aso city officials say some 20 to 30 people, including tourists, were near the crater at the time of the eruption. They say all of them have evacuated to safety. The government has set up a task force in the Prime Minister's office. An official with the meteorological agency has shed more light on what happened.
We found that the smoke rose not only vertically, but also horizontally. The eruption could have pyroclastic flows.
Disaster Management Minister Eriko Yamatani has called on bureaucrats across relevant ministries to work closely with officials in Kumamoto Prefecture to gather information and ensure the safety of the residents.
Welcome to another segment of the Spirited Debate. I'm Lauren Green, Chief Religion Correspondent for Fox News Channel. Does God use the motion of the planets to communicate with us, to announce things to come? Well, many people believe that an astronomical occurrence called 4 blood moons is a message from God. A blood moon is a full lunar eclipse, and 4 of them in a row is called a tetrad. When they've occurred on the Jewish High Holy Days, it's coincided with major historical events, like the Six-Day War in 1967. 4 blood moons on the Jewish High Holy Days has happened only 3 times in the last 500 years. The next time it occurs is starting next spring on the Jewish Passover.
Saudi officials clear the reason behind this tragic collapse of a crane over what has become an increasingly busy construction site around the Grand Mosque in Mecca was bad weather, rain, severe rain and heavy winds that caused the temperature, according to CNN's weather experts, to drop from 42 degrees centigrade to 25. So powerful were these gusts. Now, this is the holiest site for the Muslim faith. It contains the Kaaba, a key black cube which was said to be the beginning place of worship, around which, to complete the Hajj pilgrimage, Muslims who are able-bodied must travel to Mecca and walk around the Kaaba 7 times counterclockwise. The Grand Mosque is the building that surrounds it. It's been expanded at a fast pace to try and cope with over 2 million people, potentially at just one time. And this tragic event came just about 10 days away from the beginning of 2015's Hajj. Already over 850,000 pilgrims recorded inside Mecca, traveling for this most sacred of occasions in the Muslim calendar. Now, the figures have risen quickly over the first hours after which the disaster occurred, but many, of course, now still working around the wreckage to give as much treatment to anyone who may have been injured from the collapsing crane. The pictures showing how it tore lumps of concrete down with it. This such a busy construction site. I'm sure Saudi officials, now they're determined whether it was behind the crane falling, will also be looking into quite the level of safety adhered to at that particular site. But already condolences coming in from the French Foreign Ministry, who assure Saudi authorities and people that they are with them in solidarity at this very tragic time. The Indian Exterior Ministry saying yes, that some Indian pilgrims were in fact among the injured. This is an international event, not just purely one for Saudi Arabia, but it is such a vital and sacred moment for the Muslim faith. And to see the terror that you can hear in the background of the amateur videos that captured the event itself just shows you really how this will sadly, I'm sure, overshadow this year's Hajj, and of course alter irrevocably the lives of those injured and who know those who died today. A very tragic moment indeed. Nick Payton-Walsh, CNN, Beirut.
China's massive military parade in Beijing today delivered a very clear message far away to America. On grand display in the Chinese capital, new weapons, which U.S. officials believe are designed specifically to target U.S. military assets. A new ballistic missile with the range to strike the U.S. naval base at Guam, earning it the nickname the Guam Killer. A new anti-ship ballistic missile, which analysts call the Carrier Killer, unveiled today for the first time. And high above, a flyover by China's new J-15 fighter, soon to be deployed on China's own new aircraft carrier, its first. All this today watched not just by China's elite, but Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Pentagon brushed off the show of force.
People know the strength of the United States, the strength of our military, and I think it's safe to say that we don't need to display it at parades necessarily for people to understand what the United States is capable of.
Still, as President Obama gets ready to welcome the Chinese president to Washington for a full state visit later this month, China is increasingly flexing its military muscle far from its shores. Chinese Navy ships entered waters off Alaska for the first time this week. At the same time, President Obama was visiting. And China continues to militarize man-made islands in the South China Sea, waters the U.S. considers international. We came face-to-face with the Chinese military there on board a U.S. surveillance aircraft this May.
This is the Chinese Navy. This is the Chinese Navy. Please go away quickly.
China's Navy is going to be operating increasingly as a blue water navy around the world, and the United States is just going to have to get used to it.
Though today's ceremony did not mention the U.S., a Chinese company produced this video showing a Chinese attack on forces very much resembling American ones, with an overwhelming Chinese victory.
By the day, Russian denials of involvement in this brutal conflict appear to be eroding. Kremlin now says if it weren't for Moscow helping the Syrian government, this carnage would worsen and the humanitarian crisis intensified.
We've been providing and will be providing all necessary military technical assistance, and we call on other countries to join us. If Russia hadn't been supporting Syria, the situation there would be worse than in Libya, and we would see more refugees.
But it's the level of that military support which continues to raise concerns. The Kremlin is rejecting allegations it's already engaged in combat operations alongside the Syrian military. But US officials say Russia appears to be dramatically increasing its military footprint in Syria, bypassing NATO airspace restrictions to fly in weapons and supplies. And recent satellite images of the government-held Latakia airbase in Syria appear to confirm it's being expanded. The Pentagon saying the movement by Russia into Latakia suggests that it intends to establish some sort of forward air operating base there. But US officials admit the real intentions of the Kremlin are as yet unclear: to build an anti-ISIS coalition, to support its Syrian ally, or simply to send a message to the West that Russia is back.
Fresh protests at Kaleti station in Budapest this evening. The refugees and migrants are frustrated, hot, tired and angry. On Monday, the police let them get on trains to Austria, but have now stopped them again with no explanation.
People were pushing at the gate to try to get it to come down so they could go into Hungary. Now, after a little while, and it's still going on now, people are throwing bottles and apples and other objects in the direction of the Serbian, the Hungarian Special Terrorism Police, riot police. And afterwards, they fired back with tear gas, and you can see a water cannon is now being fired as well. And of course, among the crowd, there are many children, many women who are very close to that area. So there are a lot of people who were overcome with this tear gas, which is quite strong. Now, there are some Serbian police here, but just a really small number, nothing enough to handle this crowd at the moment. And of course, we've heard them all day chanting at that gate, open the door, open the door. And as far as the Hungarian authorities go, that's simply not going to happen.
Topping our world lead today, allegations that U.S. military officials altered ISIS intelligence assessments, exaggerating the success of the U.S.-led coalition's fight against the terrorist group. And now CNN has learned that the Pentagon's watchdog, the Inspector General, is investigating. Let's get right to CNN's Barbara Starr live at the Pentagon. Barbara, what are your sources telling you about this?
Hi, Jake. After weeks of rumors, defense officials today finally did confirm the Inspector General investigating these allegations. The big question is how broad, how deep, how far does all of this go? The allegation appears to be that Defense Intelligence Agency military intelligence analysts claim that some of their work was altered by higher ups, so the progress in the war would look better all the way up the chain of command.
Breaking news up on Capitol Hill. Senate Democrats just blocked efforts to kill the Iran deal. They failed to block efforts to kill the Iran deal. Opponents of the deal needed 60 votes, but only managed to get 58. It's an important win for President Obama. He's calling this afternoon's vote a victory for diplomacy and international security. So starting September 17th, within a few months after that, the money can start flowing to Iran. Is that right?
Within 9 months, the Ayatollah and his henchman, who's a radical jihadist, who's a religious Nazi, who wants to kill the Jews as much as Hitler did.
You questioned whether the court should revisit the constitutionality of the death penalty.
I did.
What are you raising? Tell us what you're.
What I said in that dissent, and Ruth Ginsburg joined it.
Because this is really the first time we've heard a justice question whether the death penalty is constitutional.
Oh no, it isn't the first time.
But the first time you've said it, right?
That's the first time I wrote this opinion. That's true. But I mean, Justice Potter Stewart said he said he thought it was like being struck by lightning. It's arbitrary. As John Stevens, Harry Blackman, and people have questioned it. And what I wrote there in the opinion was to suggest that the way it's been administered, first, sometimes the wrong person. Second, if you look at who is actually executed, it seems pretty arbitrary, and there are 41 pages of documentation on this kind of thing. Third, if you look at the average length of time it takes from the time a person is sentenced to death to the time of execution, 18 years now, 18 years before there is an execution. And if you look to the number of executions, it's fallen dramatically, and they're almost all in a handful of counties. And so I put together this evidence and say, this is not what people expected when they wrote the cases upholding the death penalty more than 40 years ago, and therefore I think it's time to revisit the issue. That is what I said.
We turn overseas tonight and to Rome, and global headlines at this hour over what Pope Francis declared today, presiding over Mass in St. Peter's Square. Just 24 hours after our exclusive visit to the Vatican, his new message to America before his visit here. Tonight, though, he is tackling a highly charged, highly personal issue, abortion, saying women who have had abortions can be forgiven, saying he understands the pressure women feel, the scars abortion leaves on their hearts. Do you have a message for America before your visit, a parting message?
Que rezo por ustedes.
He said, I'm praying for all of you, the people of the United States, and I ask you to pray for me.
13 trillion electron volts. That's the energy at which the Large Hadron Collider smashes together protons, new this year, 2015. Right now, 100 meters below us, superconducting magnets, just like these, are doing the heavy lifting required to get these proton beams to bend around the 27-kilometer tunnel and allow them to get up to almost the speed of light, and to 13 TeV, which is the highest energy that humans have ever used in a collider experiment. So what are we looking for? Things like dark matter, dark energy, supersymmetry, quantum black holes, large extra dimensions. But really, we're just pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. We don't know what we're going to find at 13 TeV at the LHC.
Now this is for real. I found this on the riverbank, okay? So don't freak out too much, but this was half eaten by a bear.
That's tasty.
Well, that's proper Alaskan salmon for you.
Good night and have a pleasant. Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
At the CNN Center, an 8.3 magnitude earthquake has struck off the Chilean coast, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. The epicenter is about 50 kilometers west of the city of Ayapec. Ayapec is about 3 hours north of the capital, Santiago. The city's mayor says all lights have been knocked out, and right now it's difficult to assess the damage. These are the images from inside the office of our affiliate there, CNN Chile, moments after the quake struck. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center says widespread hazardous tsunami waves are possible along most of the country's coast, and emergency evacuations are now underway. The center says the tsunami threat also extends across the Pacific to islands including Hawaii and Polynesia and the coasts of Peru and Ecuador. But so far, as of now, reports of widespread damage or injuries have not emerged, but it is still early. All of this happened about 2 hours or less than 2 hours ago. Initially, the USGS thought the quake had a power of magnitude 7.9. That was quickly upgraded to 8.3. The epicenter was just off the shore, and again, happening at 7:54 p.m. local time.
The United States Geological Survey has just given us an update that we didn't want to hear. This is now an 8.3 magnitude earthquake. And if that is the case, it would rank as one of the strongest ones that I've ever covered. It would rank stronger than Fukushima. It would rank stronger than Northridge, which hit in California. It would rank stronger than any United States earthquake except the one that hit in 1904 that I was discussing with a guest here, Greta, just a couple of days ago. If it's an 8.3 earthquake, as they've now updated, that's a massive earthquake. And
Shep,
yep.
let me make sure that I have this though. This is 150 miles off the coast.
Off the coast
of
of
Chile,
Santiago.
Right? So there are no injuries that we know of
That's
in
right.
Chile and on Santiago.
Exactly
At
what I
most,
said.
we have some buildings swaying.
That's right.
And we may have people who have, of course, panicked, understandably, from the swaying. But that's where we stand right now.
Yep.
Is that right?